Have you ever wondered how to figure out the opponent's lineup? Are you new to this game and unsure about which gear you need? And as a lead, are you confident that you know all the tactics? Let me take you on a journey where we can all contribute. Lords Mobile is a complex game that poses challenges for new and veteran players alike. My goal with this video series is to gather as many useful tips as possible for both new and experienced players to make the gaming experience more enjoyable and competitive. You can help with this. The variety in the game will also be a challenge for me in this project because I don't know which tips you or newer players need. Write in the comments which tips I should include in future episodes. Don't forget to give a like and free subscription. Now let's get to today's topic. 7 tips and tricks for new, casual, and pro players. Part 1. As a preface, I want to mention that experienced players might not find much new information here. However, I particularly encourage them to share their own tips in the comments. Let's start with some basics, beginning with number 1, using jewels effectively. Here, I am more focused on the mathematical aspect rather than the priority of each type. This tip is especially useful for new players because it is often overlooked. Here, we see a golden cavalry attack jewel. This gem provides you with an additional 20% attack boost. If we split this jewel, we get 4 purple cavalry attack jewels, each providing a 12% attack boost. Further splitting a purple jewel yields 4 blue cavalry attack jewels, each adding 6% to your attack. If you don't have enough golden jewels available, split them to gain more power from the lower tier gems. But which jewels should I use in my gear? This brings us to tip number 2, prioritizing jewels types. To determine the priority, we assign values to attack, HP, and defense based on their effectiveness. Attack has the highest impact, so we assign it a value of 1. HP gets a value of 0.6 and defense is valued at 0.1. Keep these values in mind as they will become important shortly. If you want a dedicated video on this topic, let me know in the comments. Detailing all the reports here would be too much. Displayed on the screen is a table where you can see the value for blast gear. By focusing our strength on a single troop type, the base attack and army attack receive the same value. Examples for clarification. Which gem is better for infantry gear? The blue dragon infantry jewel is better than the golden infantry defense jewel. 3% infantry attack equals 3 effective points, while 20% infantry defense equals 2 effective points. Which gem is better for cavalry gear? The purple saber jewel is the best choice. The blue cav range jewel gives 2% attack for cavalry, which equals 2 points, while the purple saber jewel gives 7.5% HP, equating to 4.5 points. In mixed gear, army percentage values give 3 times more points than base percentages because they boost all 3 troop types. Examples for clarification. Which gem is better for mixed gear? The golden army attack gem is the best. The range attack jewel with its 20% provides 20 effective points, but the golden army attack jewel, giving 10% army attack, provides 30 effective points. Which gem is better for mixed gear in this case? The golden army HP jewel wins. The golden cavalry attack jewel gives 20 effective points, but the army HP jewel with its 15% provides 27 points. You can apply this point system to your gear, talents, and more. Speaking of attack strategies, let's move on to tip number 3, testing the enemy formation. I'll show you my personal method, which is a bit more expensive than other variants, but I've used it for so long that I can estimate the potential damage based on the might drop. Feel free to share your own testing marches and wall breakers in the comments. To test the enemy formation, you first need to attack their wall. I always test in range phalanx by default. I'll explain why in another tip. For my setup, I use 100,000 T4 siege troops and 15,000 T2 troops of each type. After this hit, the wall is 100% destroyed, and we can proceed with further tests. I'll explain the detailed method here because I also have a question for you. For my 3 troop-specific attacks, I use 10,000 T4 troops, 50,000 T2 troops, and 4 trash troops of each other type. I'll explain the rationale behind this in more detail later. The purpose of these 3 attacks is to determine the highest might drop. Let me show you with a practical example. First, we destroy the wall and then begin testing. I start with infantry, then range, and finally cavalry. In this example, we see that range caused the most damage. This indicates the enemy is in a cavalry formation. The other 2 tests with infantry and cavalry confirm that the enemy is in a cavalry phalanx. It gets more interesting when the enemy is in a wedge formation. You need to pay close attention to the drops. Unfortunately, I don't know the specifics for infantry wedge. If anyone does, please share it in the comments. For range wedge, there is a particular characteristic. Infantry and cavalry won't cause any damage. If you get 0 drops from infantry and cavalry and very few from range, it's likely the enemy is in a range wedge. When enemies hide a large number of troops in their castle, a range phalanx can sometimes behave like a range wedge. We have better luck with cavalry wedge. As far as I know, this is accurately indicated by the drops. If you get 0 drops from infantry, moderate drops from range, and high drops from cavalry, the enemy is definitely in a cavalry wedge. Sticking with formations, let's move on to tip number 4, the forced infantry phalanx. Understanding this mechanic is key to knowing why trash troops are important in range formations, and why I always test the enemy's formation in a range formation. When you rally against players using only range and siege troops, the enemy's troops will move into an infantry phalanx in front of the wall. To avoid being affected by this mechanic, make sure to use a range formation during tests, or if you notice your opponent is stationing troops at your target while you are running a range rally. Continuing with the topic of troop movements, we come to tip number 5. Range never gets hit as second. Many leads have missed out on good hits because they didn't follow this rule. Let's use a cavalry phalanx as a visual example. In this setup, cavalry is in the front line, range is in the second line, and infantry is at the back. Let's examine the following reports: 2,000 T4 cavalry versus 2,000 T4 infantry, and 2,000 T4 range. Since there is no cavalry front line in this battle, the range troops automatically become the front line and get hit. But what happens if we add some cavalry to the mix? The combat behavior changes. The cavalry in the front line gets eliminated, and the infantry becomes the focus as the second troop type. The simplest explanation for this is that range troops stay in place during troop movements. Tip number 6. Recognizing Solotraps. To successfully identify most Solotraps, we need to understand how much EDM, called enemies destroyed might, they gain per battle. Since these castles do not participate in rallies, their might per troop is capped at a maximum of 48 EDM. T5 is the highest tier and adds 48 might per unit. Given that Solotraps rarely face full T5 attacks, my comfortable range is between 38 EDM per troop. Visually expressed, let's look at this statistic and calculate the EDM per troop. 11 billion might divided by 362 million troops gives us approximately 32 EDM per troop. This account falls within this range, so as a rule, I would avoid attacking it. Before we move on to our final tip, if you enjoy this content, please give me a like and a free subscription. I really would appreciate it. For those who love mind games, I present to you tip number 7, the fake cancel. The fake cancel is perfect for players who are online, especially when they are fully reinforced. Many guild members react to external changes and notice them in the guild chat. We use this to catch our target unprepared. To execute this, ask everyone joining the rally to send 1 T5 troop as reinforcement to the lead. At the right moment, the lead releases all reinforcements at once, creating the impression that the rally has been cancelled. Most players do not have their sound on, so they miss the audible cancellation sound. Try this tactic to confuse your opponent. If you need more tips and tricks, just follow this series. Have a great day. Bye.